Hey, I'm Emma. Welcome to Emma's Betrayal Stories now. Before we start, go grab a snack and get comfortable for a bit. These stories aren't rushed, they're the kind you sit with. Today's story comes with an update and my own personal opinions throughout the story. Let me know in the comments if you agree or see it differently. Let's begin. My sister tried to steal my wedding ideas, so I planned a bigger surprise that outshined her. I caught her with my binder open on her lap like it belonged there, like she hadn't just slid it out from under the bench in the bridal suite the second I stepped into the restroom. The room smelled like hairspray and steamed fabric, and there was that soft, expensive hush of a boutique where everyone whispers like they're in a museum. My sister's nails, freshly done, pale pink, tapped against the plastic sleeves as she flipped through my seating chart drafts. She didn't even look guilty. She looked curious, interested, like she was browsing a catalog. Oh my God, I breathed, and my throat tightened so hard it felt like I'd swallowed a stone. Juliet, what are you doing? She finally looked up, eyebrows raised like I'd interrupted her. Relax, she said, too calm, too smooth. I was just making sure you didn't forget anything. You're stressed. You've been snapping at everyone. Her voice carried that little edge she always uses when she's trying to make the room agree with her without asking it directly. I could feel blood rush into my face, hot and prickly. I stepped forward, grabbed the binder, and it made a sharp slap as the covers closed. A seamstress looked up from pinning fabric, startled. The receptionist at the front pretended she didn't hear. I lowered my voice because there were strangers around, and I hated that my body still remembered how to behave like the reasonable one, even when I wanted to yell. You're not helping, I said. You're stealing. It was last September when I got engaged, and up until then I honestly thought the whole wedding drama thing was exaggerated. Like, sure, people get weird, but that's because they have too much time and too many opinions, right? I didn't expect the weirdest part to be my own sister. I'm 29, she's 32, and we've been orbiting each other our entire lives in this way that looks close from the outside but feels like a tug of war if you're standing inside it. Juliet was always the pretty one, the loud one, the one who could show up late and still be forgiven because she made everyone laugh. I was the one who remembered birthdays, who sent thank you texts, who stayed quiet when adults talked over me. When I got engaged to Evan, who is patient in a way that sometimes makes me cry because I'm not used to it, I thought my family would just be happy. And for about 2 weeks they were. Then Juliet got engaged too, very suddenly, to a guy she'd been casually seeing for 6 months, and everything changed into this tense, unspoken competition I never agreed to. Juliet had been hovering around my wedding planning from the beginning. At first it was normal sister stuff. She asked to see my ring. She asked about venues. She said, I'm so excited for you, and I let myself believe it. Then she started asking for specifics in this relentless way. Not what vibe are you thinking, but what florist are you using? What font is on your invites? What are your bridesmaids wearing? What song are you walking down the aisle to? She'd say it like she was just curious, but I started noticing she didn't share anything about her own plans unless I pried, and even then it was vague. When I told her I wanted a candlelit winter wedding, she said, cute, and 2 days later she sent me a screenshot of a venue with cozy winter glow in the description. When I showed her a photo of a dress silhouette I liked, she said, that's very you. And then 3 weeks later my mom casually mentioned Juliet was looking at sleek, simple silhouettes now, which she'd never liked before. At first I tried to laugh it off. Evan would catch me staring at my laptop like it had personally insulted me, and he'd say, what's wrong? And I'd say, nothing. I'm just tired. Because how do you explain to a grown man who grew up with 2 brothers that your sister might be trying to siphon your wedding out of your hands like a parasite, and that you're embarrassed you even care? But it got harder to ignore when the copying started becoming logistical. I booked our venue first. It's a renovated greenhouse-style space outside the city. Glass walls, tall plants, this feeling like you're inside a warm lantern. It wasn't cheap, but it was the only place that made my chest loosen when we toured it. The coordinator, a woman named Marin, hugged me when we signed. She said, you're going to have the most magical night. I went home floating. A week later, Juliet asked for the name because she wanted to see it. I didn't give it. I said, "We're still finalizing." She pouted. Then she got it anyway from my mum, of course, who lives in this fantasy where sisters are automatically best friends and boundaries are just misunderstandings. Juliet called me that night. "So," she said brightly, "funny thing. I toured your venue today." My hands went cold on my steering wheel. "I thought you said you were doing a summer wedding," I managed. "I changed my mind," she replied. "I want something romantic too. Don't be weird. There are plenty of dates." There weren't. The venue was booked solid for months. Juliet didn't end up taking a date, but she did something that made my stomach twist. She posted a selfie outside the greenhouse with a caption like, "Dreaming." People started commenting, "Is this for your wedding?" And she liked every single one. My engagement post got buried under her vague, "Maybe I'm planning something" energy. I watched it happen and felt ridiculous for being mad, which is exactly why it worked. Then the florist incident happened. I had a consultation with a floral studio I loved. Lots of texture greenery, soft white blooms, subtle things that looked natural instead of stiff. I booked them, paid the deposit. I told Juliet in passing because I was trying to be normal. 2 days later, the florist emailed me, confused, because someone had called asking to merge my order with another bride named Juliet, same last name as mine. She told them we were having a shared family event and wanted to coordinate colors so it looked cohesive. When I read that, my ears rang. I called the florist immediately, voice shaking, and clarified, "Absolutely not." The florist apologized, sounded uncomfortable, said they didn't confirm anything, just wanted to check. When I confronted Juliet, she did that thing where she acts wounded. "I was trying to help," she insisted. "You're so controlling." "I'm controlling because I don't want you calling my vendors?" I said, and even I could hear how unreal it sounded. My mom said, "Maybe she just got excited." My dad said, "Why are you making drama when you should be focused on your marriage?" Evan stood in our kitchen, arms crossed, and waited until my parents left, then said quietly, "She's not excited. She's threatened." He didn't say it angrily. He said it like a fact he'd finally accepted. That was the night I stopped sharing details. I created a decoy board. I hated myself a little for it because it felt petty and sneaky, but it also felt like wearing a lock on a door after someone keeps walking into your room and insisting it's normal. The decoy board was everything Juliet would love to steal. Blush pink, trendy fonts, a dramatic champagne tower, those neon signs that say, "Better together." I sent her a screenshot casually when she asked for inspo. She texted, "OMG obsessed," and I felt this strange mix of relief and sadness, like I just proved something I didn't want to be true. For my real wedding, I pivoted. Evan and I leaned into what we actually loved. Deep green, warm gold, tiny star-like lights tucked into the plants, a playlist that felt like us instead of TikTok. I asked Marin to keep details private. I asked vendors not to share anything with anyone but me. I password protected my wedding website, which made me feel like a spy planning a coup instead of a bride planning a party. And then, because Juliet cannot stand a boundary she didn't create, she escalated. It started with little jabs. At family dinner, she'd say things like, "I just hope you don't do anything too intense." Some people get really obsessed with weddings. She'd look at me when she said it, then smile sweetly like she was joking. When my aunt complimented my engagement ring, Juliet said, "It's nice." Evan did good. Mine is getting custom design though. She didn't even have a ring yet. Then she got weird about my dress. I didn't want to invite her dress shopping, but my mum begged. "She'll feel left out," she said, as if Juliet hadn't spent the last 6 months trying to climb into my plans like a hermit crab. So I invited her, thinking maybe I was being unfair. Thinking maybe I was projecting old sibling stuff onto new stress. That's how we ended up in that boutique, with my binder and Juliet flipping through it like she owned it. After I took it from her, she leaned back on the bench and crossed her legs, totally unbothered. "If you didn't want me to see it, you shouldn't have brought it," she said.
I ser det her.
I could feel my heart beating in my throat. It was in my bag. You left your bag, she said, shrugging. What did you expect? I wanted to say, I expected my sister not to go through my things. But the word stuck because saying it out loud makes it sound so basic, like I'm complaining about someone stealing a lip balm. When you're dealing with someone who's good at making you feel dramatic, even basic boundaries start to feel embarrassing. I bought my dress anyway. Juliet sat there the whole time making comments. That one's too plain. That one makes you look older. That one is cute, but I could never. I kept my face neutral because I've been trained to keep the peace, but my palms were sweaty and my mouth tasted metallic. That night, Evan found me in our bedroom folding laundry like I was trying to iron my feelings flat. He stood in the doorway and said, "Do you want to tell me what happened, or do you want me to guess based on the way you're folding socks like you want to strangle them?" I laughed, and it sounded a little broken. I told him everything. I told him about the binder, about the vendors, about the way Juliet made it feel like my excitement was something she could borrow and wear. Evan listened, jaw tight, and then he said, "Okay, then we stop reacting and we start planning." "What does that mean?" I asked. "It means," he said, coming over and taking my hands, "we don't try to win her game by playing louder. We do what we want and we protect it. And if you want to surprise people, we do it in a way that's about us, not her." That's when the idea for the bigger surprise was born, and I didn't even realize it was going to outshine her at first. I just wanted something that felt like ours, something Juliet couldn't copy, because she didn't know our soft spots the way Evan did. Evan and I had our first date at a tiny planetarium. It was rainy, and we were both awkward, and we sat in the dark watching fake stars while the narrator talked about constellations like they were love stories. Evan reached for my hand during the show, and I remember thinking very clearly, I could do this forever. For years we joked that one day we'd get married under the stars, and it had always felt like a joke that only belonged to us. So we built the reception around that. Not cheesy, not sci-fi, just intimate, warm. A secret night garden. Marin helped. She loved secret plans. She was the kind of coordinator who could smile warmly while quietly moving mountains behind the scenes. We arranged for the greenhouse to open a second space after dinner, an outdoor courtyard that most guests wouldn't even realize existed. We strung hundreds of tiny lights in the trees. We rented a projector that would cast a slow, subtle star pattern across the plants and the glass walls, like the whole place was breathing starlight. Evan wrote a short script with the names of constellations that mattered to us. Places we'd traveled, nights we'd sat on the balcony eating takeout and talking about our future. We hired a musician who played this soft instrumental set, not a band, not a spectacle, something that felt like stepping into a memory. And because Juliet had already stolen enough from me, I decided the best surprise wasn't louder. It was deeper. We sent guests a simple schedule. Ceremony, cocktail hour, dinner, dancing. Nothing about the night garden. Only Marin, Danny, my maid of honor. And Evan's sister knew. I didn't tell my mom because she leaks like a sieve. I didn't tell anyone who might accidentally let Juliet sniff it out. Meanwhile, Juliet's wedding planning took a sudden turn. Remember the decoy board? Yeah, she used it. 2 months before my wedding, Juliet announced her theme in the family group chat like she was launching a brand. Blush pink, champagne tower, neon sign, trendy font invites. Exactly what I'd sent her. She acted like it was this genius original vision. My mum responded with 12 heart emojis, which I won't include here because I promise no emojis, but picture it. My aunt said, "So elegant." Juliet replied, "I just have an eye." I stared at my phone, and the relief I felt was immediate and uncomfortable. Because on one hand, it worked. On the other hand, it meant my sister really was stealing, not just coincidentally overlapping. Juliet's wedding was scheduled 3 weeks before mine. That alone felt like a statement. Like she wanted to go first and set the tone. My mom kept saying, "It's wonderful. We'll have 2 weddings to celebrate." And I kept smiling while I felt myself get squeezed into the corner of my own year. Juliet's wedding happened. It was fine. Pretty even. blush and neon and champagne tower and all. And when I tell you she spent half the reception making comments about mine, I'm not exaggerating. She'd walk up to my friends and say, "Make sure you come early to mine, I mean to hers. She's very specific about timelines." She'd grab my arm and whisper, "I hope you're not doing anything too extra. People get tired." She even asked Evan's mom, loudly, whether she was ready for wedding number 2. I went home that night and cried in the shower, not because I was jealous, but because I was tired. I wanted my wedding to feel like a beginning, not like a sequel. The next morning, I got a voicemail from my cake baker. Her voice was careful. "Hi, this is Simone from Sugar and Slate. I just wanted to confirm, we received a cancellation request from this number, claiming to be you. I thought it was odd, so we didn't process anything. But I wanted to let you know." My whole body went cold. Simone read the number back to me. It was Juliet's. Okay, I'm going to say what everyone reading this is already thinking. Juliet is not just excited. She's a professional boundary eroder. The binder thing alone is such a tell because it's not even clever sabotage. It's entitlement. She genuinely believes anything you care about is fair game if she wants it, and if you object, she flips it into you being dramatic or controlling. That's the part that makes people spiral. Because now you're not only dealing with the violation, you're also defending your right to feel violated. And the parents? They're the reason she's like this. When a family treats one kid like the sun and the other like a reliable lamp, the sun kid grows up assuming the room belongs to them. The mums don't make drama reflex is basically permission for Juliet to keep pushing because the cost of speaking up is always higher than the cost of misbehaving. Evan, though, is the bright spot. He isn't escalating into macho nonsense, but he's not dismissing it either. He's treating it like what it is, a pattern that needs strategy, not just feelings. And I love the decoy board move. Some people would call it petty, I call it survival. When someone keeps breaking into your emotional house, you don't communicate better. You change the locks. If Juliet really tried to cancel the cake, that's not sibling rivalry, that's sabotage. At that point, it stops being about ideas and starts being about control. And honestly, she deserves to lose control. Update. So, yes. Juliet tried to cancel my cake. And when I called her, she didn't even deny it at first. I rang her while pacing my kitchen, phone pressed so hard to my ear it hurt. Evan stood near the fridge, arms folded, watching my face like he was ready to catch me if I fell. Juliet answered on the third ring, breezy. "Hey, what's up?" "What's up?" I said, and my voice sounded weirdly calm. "Is that you called my cake baker and tried to cancel my order?" There was a tiny pause, like she was calculating. "Oh my God," she said, laughter bubbling up. "Are you serious? That's insane." "Simone has your number," I replied. She read it to me. Another pause, and then Juliet's tone shifted into that sugary irritation she uses when she's mad but wants to sound reasonable. "Okay, wow. First of all, you're accusing me of something really crazy." "I'm not accusing," I said. "I'm telling you what happened." "I didn't do that," she insisted. "Why would I do that?" I exhaled through my nose and looked at Evan, who raised his eyebrows like, "Here we go." "Juliet," I said, "you called my florist. You toured my venue. You went through my binder. This is not a wild leap." "Wow," she snapped. "So, you've just decided I'm your villain. That's cute. Maybe wedding stress is making you paranoid." It's hard to explain how much that word, paranoid, hit me, because it was exactly what she wanted, for me to question my own reality. For me to feel embarrassed enough to back off. Evan mouthed, "Ask for proof," and I nodded. "Simone saved the voicemail," I said. "It's a woman's voice. You want me to forward it to you?" Juliet went quiet. Not a defensive quiet. A strategic quiet. And then she said, slowly, "Okay, fine. Maybe I called to ask a question. Like, maybe I was checking something. But cancel? No. You used my name," I said, and my voice finally cracked with anger. "You tried to cancel my cake." "I was trying to help you," she snapped. "You're overspending. You're doing too much. Everyone's going to be exhausted. I thought if you had a simpler cake, you'd thank me later. I actually laughed. It was sharp and ugly. You thought I'd thank you for trying to sabotage my wedding? Stop saying sabotage, she hissed. God, you love making everything dramatic. Evan stepped forward and gently took the phone from my hand, not yanking it, not controlling, just studying the situation because he could see I was about to spiral into the old pattern of defending myself. He put it on speaker. Juliet, Evan said, calm as a therapist, you can't cancel vendors for someone else's wedding. If you do this again, we'll involve the venue and we'll involve security. Juliet's breath caught. Excuse me, she said, offended, like he'd insulted her. We're not arguing about your intentions, Evan continued. We're telling you the boundary. Don't interfere. Juliet's voice got icy. Wow. So you've got her trained now. I grabbed the phone back. Do not talk about him like that, I said, shaking. And don't talk about me like I'm an object. You tried to ruin something that matters to me. Juliet scoffed. You think you're so special because you're getting married. You're not the only bride. I never said I was, I replied. But I am the only bride in my wedding. She hung up on me. I stood there, phone in my hand, staring at the blank screen like it might give me a different ending. My skin felt tight. My stomach hurt. Evan put his hands on my shoulders and said, Okay. We escalate appropriately. That's where things got real. Not dramatic, not revenge-why. Just practical. First, we called every vendor and password-protected everything. Marin at the venue was already halfway there, but we tightened it. Simone the baker was a saint and offered to only accept changes in writing for my email. The florist added a note to my file. The photographer did too. Every single person reacted like they'd heard versions of this story before, which was both comforting and horrifying. Second, we told my parents. This was the part one dreaded more than confronting Juliet, because my parents are experts at smoothing things over at my expense. I called my mom and said, Juliet tried to cancel my cake. Mom inhaled sharply like she was about to faint. Then she said, I'm sure there's a misunderstanding. There isn't, I replied. Sweetheart, she said, using that tone like she was calming a child. Your sister would never. She did, I said. And I have the voicemail. My dad got on the phone and immediately went into irritation mode. Why are you dragging us into this? Handle your wedding. Stop making it everyone's problem. I felt my eyes burn. It is everyone's problem when my sister is sabotaging my vendors, I said. And if you keep dismissing it, you're choosing her behavior. Silence. Then my dad said, Don't threaten us. That was the moment something in me shifted. Not rage. Just clarity. I'm not threatening, I said quietly. I'm informing you. If you want to keep being in my life, you don't get to tell me to accept being mistreated. My mom started crying. My dad got angry. They said I was ruining the family over a cake. Which is such a classic move. Reduce the issue to the smallest object so the person complaining looks petty. Evan sat next to me and rubbed my back while I stared at the wall. When the call ended, I felt hollow. Then I felt guilty for feeling hollow because I kept thinking, it's my wedding month. Why am I crying over my parents? Why can't I just be excited like normal people? Danny came over that night with takeout and a notebook like she was going into battle. Okay, she said, spreading the notebook open on the table. Worst case scenarios. We planned for all of them. We listed everything Juliet might do. Show up in white. Announce a pregnancy. Try to reroute vendors. Try to change seating. Try to get drunk and give a speech. Try to convince our parents to corner me. Try to make the night about her. Writing it down didn't make me feel better emotionally, but it made me feel better in my body, like there was a plan under my feet instead of quicksand. Then, 2 days before my wedding, Juliet texted me. Can we talk? I don't want bad vibes. I stared at the message for a full minute. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. My instinct was to fix it, to smooth it, to make it okay so the wedding could be peaceful. Evan looked over and said, You don't owe her access. So I replied, we can talk after the wedding. Do not contact my vendors. Juliet didn't respond, but my mom texted me separately. Please don't shut your sister out. She's hurting. I almost threw my phone onto the couch. The night before the wedding, we had the rehearsal. Juliet showed up late, of course, wearing a dress that was very intentionally attention-grabbing, tight, shiny, champagne-colored. She hugged me like we were fine. She whispered, "You look so nervous," like she was tasting it. During rehearsal dinner, she raised her glass and started to stand. Danny stood first. "I'm so sorry," Danny said brightly, cutting in with a smile that could slice bread. "We're keeping speeches to immediate wedding party only tonight. Bride's request." Juliet froze, halfway up, embarrassed in front of everyone. Her eyes flicked to me, sharp. I kept my face neutral and sipped water, like my hands weren't shaking under the table. Juliet sat down slowly. She didn't say another word to me the whole night. And honestly, that was the best gift she could have given me. After update, continuing the story to the end. The wedding day arrived like a wave. I woke up before my alarm with my heart already pounding, and for the first hour, I couldn't tell if I was excited or bracing for impact. The greenhouse was glowing by late afternoon, soft gold light caught in the glass. Marin moved around like a calm hurricane, headset on, clipboard in hand. The florist's work looked like a real garden had decided to dress up. Greenery spilling naturally, white flowers tucked like secrets. I kept waiting for Juliet to do something. When she arrived, I saw her through a crack in the bridal suite door. She stepped in wearing not white, technically, but a pale, shimmering ivory-adjacent dress that made my stomach drop anyway. She'd done her hair like an old Hollywood star. She looked stunning, and she knew it. Marin approached her immediately. I couldn't hear the words, but I saw Juliet's face tighten. Marin gestured gently toward a shawl on a nearby chair, something Danny had planted earlier, a soft green wrap meant for anyone who gets cold. Juliet hesitated, then, with visible annoyance, draped it over her shoulders. It dulled the dress. Just enough. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. The ceremony was beautiful. Evan cried when he saw me. I cried when I heard his voice shake on his vows. For 20 minutes, Juliet didn't exist. My parents didn't exist. It was just me, Evan, and this moment we'd built with our hands and our patience. At cocktail hour, Juliet floated from group to group like she was hosting. I watched her from across the room and felt a dull ache. Not jealousy, exactly, but exhaustion at how much oxygen she always needs. Then, during dinner, she tried. She clinked her glass loudly, standing up with this bright, practiced smile. "Hi, everyone," she began, voice carrying. Marin appeared at her side like she'd been summoned by the sound. "Juliet," Marin said, still smiling, "we're not doing unscheduled speeches tonight. Please sit." Juliet's smile didn't falter, but her eyes flashed. "It's just a quick toast," she insisted. Evan's best man, Cal, stood too. Not aggressive, just present. "We've got the mic schedule," Cal said politely. "We're sticking to it." Juliet's cheeks flushed. She sat down, lips pressed thin. My mum looked torn. My dad looked annoyed. At me, not at her, which told me everything I needed to know. I forced myself to look away and focus on Evan's hand on my knee under the table, steady and warm. Then it happened. The night garden reveal. After dinner, when people were full and loose and laughing, Marin dimmed the lights inside the greenhouse. The music softened. People turned curious. Evan took my hand and guided me toward the center of the room. He tapped a glass gently, not a sharp clink, just enough to draw attention. "Hey," he said, voice warm. "We have one more thing for you." Guests murmured. Phones came out. Juliet leaned forward, suspicious. Evan looked at me, then back at everyone. "When Maya and I had our first date," he said, "we sat under fake stars in a tiny planetarium. It was raining. We were awkward. And somehow, it felt like the safest place in the world." People smiled. My throat tightened. We've joked for years that we'd get married under the stars, Evan continued. So, we tried to bring them here. Marin nodded to her team, and the greenhouse doors, tall, hidden behind greenery, slowly opened. A ripple went through the room. People stood, craning to see. Outside, the courtyard had transformed. Hundreds of tiny lights shimmered in the trees. The plants were lit from below with warm gold. And across the glass walls, a soft constellation pattern moved like a slow tide, stars drifting gently across leaves and faces. It wasn't loud. It wasn't cheesy. It felt unreal, like stepping into the night you wish you could hold on to. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." Evan squeezed my hand. "Come with me," he murmured. We led everyone outside. The musician began to play, delicate and quiet. People drifted into the space like they'd been invited into a secret. Danny's eyes were wet. My mentor hugged me so hard I almost lost my breath. Even my dad looked stunned, like his brain didn't know how to minimize something that was literally glowing. Juliet stood near the doorway, frozen. She looked around, lips parted slightly, like she couldn't find the angle where she fit herself into the center of it. For the first time all year, my sister was outshined by something she couldn't copy, because it wasn't just an idea. It was a memory. It was us. Later, as people danced under the lights, Juliet cornered me near the dessert table. Her voice was low. "So this is why you've been so secretive," she said, and the bitterness in her tone made my skin prickle. I looked at her, really looked, and I felt something unexpected. Pity. Not smugness. Not triumph. Just pity that she'd spent months trying to steal scraps instead of building something real for herself. "I was secretive because you kept crossing lines," I said. Juliet's eyes narrowed. "You're acting like I'm some criminal." "You tried to cancel my cake," I replied. She flinched, just a fraction, and then recovered. "You're still on that?" "Yes," I said simply. "Because it happened." She opened her mouth, probably to twist it, to make me feel crazy, but then Marin approached with a gentle smile. "Everything okay?" she asked. Juliet's face tightened again. She looked at me, then at Marin, then back at me. "Fine," she said sharply and walked away. The rest of the night was ours. Evan and I danced. We ate cake. We laughed until our cheeks hurt. At one point, I caught my mom watching me with this strange expression, soft, regretful. She didn't say anything, but she hugged me before she left and whispered, "It's beautiful." My dad said gruffly, "Good job." It wasn't perfect. It wasn't a movie ending. But when the last guest left and the lights were still twinkling and Evan pulled me into his arms in the empty courtyard, I felt something settle in me. Juliet could copy my fonts. She could stalk my vendors. She could wear a dress that tried to compete. But she couldn't steal what was real. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I was competing at all. I felt like I'd stepped off the field. Juliet is the kind of person who treats other people's joy like a resource. If you're happy, she wants to know why, how, and whether she can siphon off the attention without doing the emotional labor that created the happiness in the first place. The binder scene says everything. She doesn't ask, she takes. Then she reframes it as help, so if you object, you look unreasonable. That's not innocent curiosity, it's a control tactic. The vendor calls and the cake cancellation attempt move her from annoying sister into actively harmful, because at that point she's not just copying aesthetics, she's interfering with someone else's life event to reassert her position. And the most pathetic part is that she does it while insisting she's the victim of your drama. That combination, boundary crossing plus victim posture, is exhausting because it's designed to make you doubt your own reality. The parents are a huge part of why she's like this. Mom's impulse to smooth everything over is basically lighter fluid on Juliet's behavior. "I'm sure she didn't mean it," teaches Juliet she doesn't have to take responsibility because Mom will rewrite the story into something safer. Dad's whole "stop making drama" routine is worse because it's not neutrality, it's alignment with whoever is louder and more inconvenient. He punishes the person who names the problem, not the person creating it, because the naming disrupts his comfort. That's how families end up with one sibling who bulldozes and another who apologizes for being in the way of the bulldozer. Evan is the MVP. Not because he put Juliet in her place with macho theatrics, but because he treated the situation like it mattered and helped build actual boundaries without turning the wedding into a battlefield. Danny is also essential. Every bride needs at least one person who will quietly block the chaos, so the bride doesn't have to spend her own wedding policing a grown adult. And the narrator? She finally did the mature version of winning. She didn't outshine Juliet by being louder or meaner. She outshined her by going deeper, by building something rooted in real intimacy and meaning. That kind of glow is impossible to steal. Juliet can copy a theme. She can't copy a relationship. She can't copy a memory that lives in two people's bodies. The best revenge here isn't humiliation. It's freedom. The narrator walked out of the dynamic with her head up, her wedding intact, and her sister exposed by her own choices, without even needing a mic drop.